Thanks for joining us. I'm Randall Bennett. All the details are finally starting to fill in with Palm's upcoming launch of the Pre-smartphone. We heard today that they're going to launch it on June 6th for $200. There's a catch there we'll talk about in a second on Sprint's network. And there's, this phone has been getting ridiculous amounts of hype. Let's break down the final launch details as we close into the last couple of weeks with a couple of people who we like to talk to. Stuart Miles from Pocket-Lint joins us. Stuart, thanks for being with us.
Hello.
Also, David Chartier from MacWorld. He's a contributor there. Thanks for joining us as well.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about this. Now, the Pre, obviously, it's been a big deal ever since it was announced at CES. Now we're hearing that the phone's going to launch for $300 with a $100 mail-in rebate because Palm likes to kick it old school. And the plan will be $70 per month for 450 minutes. So it's kind of, the details are finally about solid. Stuart, you're coming to the US in a couple weeks. Is the Pre something that you would look at buying?
I think it's certainly, I think the plan, I presume, is to try and appeal to the iPhone users who would go for an iPhone but want a QWERTY keyboard, and maybe the BlackBerry users who want an iPhone but don't want to lose the QWERTY keyboard. So I quite like the BlackBerry Bold because I'm a QWERTY keyboard kind of guy. So yeah, I suppose if I was staying around long enough in the US to justify a $70 price plan and 2-year contract, then I'd probably look to upgrade.
Yeah. I mean, is there anything in particular other than the keyboard you're looking forward to, or is it more just that tactility that you're missing from the iPhone?
I think the tactability, as I say, I'm a keyboard person. I've tried with the BlackBerry Storm, for example, and not really a big fan of that because just I type too fast for it to sort of the software to keep up. But the sort of, I think the functionality in the App Store and stuff like that, and I know BlackBerry has the App Store, but every time I look for an app in the BlackBerry App Store, it doesn't seem to be there.
Yeah,
and it's like you then have to go off and find it somewhere else, which sort of defeats the point.
David, what's your take? Are you, you're a Macworld guy. I assume you're an iPhone user. Is this something that's going to replace the iPhone in your pocket?
I don't know if it'll replace it right out the bat, but I have to admit, I'm pretty big on the iPhone. I got the original the first day it came out. I got the 3G the day it came out too. I have probably 80 apps, if not more. They're not all installed on my phone right now, but I swapped some out, like travel apps and stuff like I don't need right now. But I have to admit, the Pre looks really interesting. I might try one of those 30-day trials just to get my hands on it and sort of play around with it and maybe return it if it doesn't quite work. But Palm's done some really interesting stuff that I think Apple just doesn't really seem to understand, like with the merging all your contacts from different social communities and things like that. Apple just doesn't seem to get the web very well, and Palm clearly does with a lot of the stuff they've demonstrated in the Pre, and I think that's really interesting. Palm lives in this 21st century web world where Apple is focusing a little more on its own apps.
I mean, Palm's been stuck in the gutter for a while, so if they didn't come up with something smart, it's probably be a bigger problem. So what's the one thing for you, David, where if it works out the way you're expecting, it works out the way you hope, if Palm hits it out of the park, it'll make you drop your iPhone?
It's a possibility. I'm a big iPhone fan. I live in the Apple ecosystem. I have another iPod. We have an Apple TV. But if it's a great experience, and if Apple doesn't really show a whole lot of improvement with iPhone OS 3.0 that's coming out this summer, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
All right, interesting stuff. So, Stuart, we've seen this for a while. Was there any announcements today, be it the price plan or the price point or any of those different details that kind of filled in the gaps that you were kind of shocked about? Or were you, I mean, we all pretty much knew that this was coming early June. Was there any sort of shocker out of the mix?
I don't think so. I mean, the mail-in rebate's quite an interesting one. As you say, it's quite old school.
Yeah.
Maybe they like people cutting up the box to then send in the barcode. I don't know. Surely that'd just be a paperwork nightmare.
Yeah.
So I think that's quite strange. But then obviously they want to entice people to. There's obviously a data mining collection initiative going on somewhere in the background. It's quite strange for us, in the UK, to even contemplate paying for phones, because majority of the time you can, as long as you pay enough on your contract on a monthly basis, you can get the phone for free. So the iPhone was pretty much free, and when it first came out and it wasn't free, it didn't really sell that well.
Yeah.
So I presume when the Palm Pre comes to the UK, which again they're still playing tight-lipped on here in the UK to get the answer for, I don't expect to have to pay for it if you're ready to upgrade.
Interesting stuff. I don't know, David, any final parting shots on this whole thing? It's something we've been expecting for a long time. Now the details are finally filled in. Any parting shots on the Pre?
I think it's I hesitate to say it's the first big competition for the iPhone, but Android was probably really the first, and the buzz seems to have died down a little bit around Android, and I don't really know why. I don't follow it as much, and there seems to be a lot more buzz around the Palm and Sprint right now, especially with all the unique things Palm is doing with the Pre, and I think they have a really good chance of kind of sustaining that. If it's a good launch, if it's a solid OS, they don't have some of the bugs that Apple has had with its big iPhone launches.
Or the BlackBerry.
Palm could, yeah, or the BlackBerry. Palm could have a shot at really carving out a niche again, like it used to have.
I think the one thing that they need to be sure of, that they just have to, at all costs, is nail the software. I mean, I think that they were kind of playing coy at the release date, and now that it's come, like I hope that this software is as good as everyone's hoping. I don't know, Stuart, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I think you have to always remember, though, that Palm is always the darling of the gadget press. Everybody always thinks that they love Palm and always have done so. If you look at previous announcements, launches, they were the original smartphone maker. However, they've obviously clearly been steering the ship in the wrong direction for quite some time, because lots of people also saying this is the last-ditch attempt, attempting to save the company. It's one of those things where okay, so they've managed to generate Apple-type hype, which is great. Very clever in the way they launched it, very clever in the way they've been teasing the US and UK press on this launch date and all the other stuff. The trouble is when it comes out, if it doesn't deliver the goods, then I think it will probably fall flat on its face quite quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll have a really good indication probably by Sunday or Monday whether Palm's actually done the things they need to do and hit it out of the park. Guys, we're going to have to leave it there. We're out of time. Stuart Miles from Pocket-Lint, thanks for joining us. David Chartier from MacWorld. We'll have links to all their publications as well as their Twitter feed, so you can follow them. And you should follow us. We're TechV Show on Twitter. Subscribe to us on iTunes. We're on YouTube. Just try and get us more. All right, we'll see you later.
Thanks, Randall.